Hello, everyone. This is Rabbi Dan with the weekly Parsha. We will try to provide these videos to you every so often. There have been a few for Shabbat, and we are sending them out to residences with the wonderful help of our Life and Leisure teams. And we hope you receive them. And we unfortunately can have a very key part of class, probably the most important part of class, which is the interaction. But I do invite you to send notes along, send your thoughts along in any way you see fit, by phone call or by letters through your staff and your individual residences. And perhaps in the future weeks, we'll be able to answer those questions. I also am available by email, by phone, and I will provide those at the end of the session. So we start off this week with Parshat Emor. Parshat Emor is in the book of Leviticus, as we've been traveling throughout this time. We are about in the middle of Parsha of the book of Leviticus, the Vayikra. And the main theme of Vayikra is Kedusha, holiness. And for a very long time, I had a very difficult time really understanding what it means to be holy, what holiness is. And even today, I struggle with really pinpointing what it could mean and how it's used in different places. But what I identify, what speaks to me most in looking over the Torah in the brief time that I've had the time to look at it in my life, is Kedusha, being holy in the Torah, is the idea of uniqueness. Some part of a bigger part of a picture, which the Torah has asked us to take out in order to create a space for God. So when we look at the days of the week, we have 6 days that are not holy, and one day that is. That day, of course, is Shabbat. So although each day we have a small amount of holiness building up to Shabbat, only on Friday evening, Friday nights, and Shabbat day, for 25 hours, are we kept in what is called Shabbat Kodesh. And we are meant to unify ourselves with God, to take out an entire portion of our week in order to spend that with God. God created the universe, he finished his work, and he made that day holy. And that is the days of the week. There also are days that are called Shabbats and are also called Mikra'e Kodesh, times of holy convocation, when we come together and we call these days out as being holy. These are the holidays: Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot. Days carved out throughout the year that, although we have the whole spectrum of 365, only a few are picked out of those days to get closer to God for unique timing. Each have a theme, each of the holidays have a reason, and we'll discuss that. This is exactly what we are discussing this week in Parshat Emor, Mikra'e Kodesh. But also the book of Leviticus has, in addition to time, both days of the week and days of the year, we also have holy people. Now, all people have a holiness to them. All people are unique. Each person we meet has a different way to connect to God, and we can learn from each person and learn how they connect to God. And with each lesson we are learning a sense of holiness. And perhaps that is the goal when we say that the main goal of the Torah is Lahafta l'recha kamocha. The main value of the Torah is to love each person as if we love ourselves. Perhaps because each person has their own different sinew, their own different pipe, their own different line to God. And so by learning from each person, we can get closer to God because we can feel how they connect uniquely. And in Pirkei Avot, which we also started to learn right after Pesach, but this past week we learned a very important Mishnah, which was Ezahu Hacham. Who is wise? It is the person that learns Kol Adam, the person who is learning and growing and connecting to each and every person. So you can be intelligent by reading books, but you cannot be wise until you have talked to as many people as possible. Kol Adam. Or that's at least how we measure the wisdom, is by how many people we have connected to, how many people we have learned from. Finally, so then we have Kedusha, holiness of place, holiness of time, holiness of people, and finally, holiness of place. Holiness of place, you see behind me, we have the Kotel Maravi, the Western Wall, also called the Wailing Wall, because people come and cry there. But the holiness is not really only in the wall, really. The wall, of course, is not the main part of holiness. And we'll talk about this in other weeks. The main part of the holiness is deep within the wall. Deep within the wall that stands on top of a larger fixture is the Kodesh Kedoshim. Back there. Way in there. And we'll talk about that in a different week. But that's what we have. We have holiness of time, holiness of place, holiness of person. And this week's in Parshat Emor, we talk about holiness of place. Okay, so we're going to look at a few sources this week, and from the Parsha, and we'll talk about. And we see the text here from Emor, Vayikra Chaf Gimel, Vayikra 23. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Vart Alehem, Moadei Adonai Asher Tikru Otam, Mikra E Kodesh Elahem Moadai. And God said to Moses, speak unto the Israelites, and you shall say to them, these are the fixed times of the Lord, which you shall call sacred convocations. These are my fixed times. My 6 days shall be done. On the seventh day, an absolute Sabbath, a sacred convocation. No task shall you do. Sheshet yom taseh malacha uvo hashivi Shabbaton mikra kodesh. Kol malacha lo ta'asu. Shabbat hi l'Adonai v'chol moshavotechem. Elamod Adonai mikra kodesh tikra'u otam b'moadam. These are the fixed times of God, the sacred convocations, which you shall call in their fixed time. And this commentary and translation are from Robert Alter's 5 Books of Moses. And it says, sacred convocations, which you shall call. In this recurring phrase, the verb tikra'e and its object, mikra'e kodesh, are cognates. Something that the translation intimates, at least etymologically, because convocation is derived from a Latin term called calling. Call means to proclaim or to convene, to invite. And so what I find interesting is that on the one hand, this is in the Torah. And so it tells us specifically that these are days, all of the days I mentioned, the Hagim, all of the Moadim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot. All of those days, the ones that are biblically mentioned, not Hanukkah, not Purim, not Tisha B'Av, not Yom Ha'atzmaut, not Yom Yerushalayim. Those are a different topic. Those are rabbinic holidays. The ones the Bible mentioned are called biblical. And that's what the portion is talking about. Mikra'e Kodesh are days that are called convocations. So we call out to them. We have to announce that these are days. That's always a strange idea. Because it's not just that they are called out, that we call to them, implying that if we didn't call out to them, maybe they wouldn't be holidays. So we have to call out the days. So why do we need to call out these dates? Why not just have them be celebrated? And what I think is even harder, and why I want to point this out, is that what if we don't want to call out these dates? Are they still holidays? It was a very difficult Passover, as we all know. No matter where we were, no matter what we were doing, we had a difficult time calling this a holiday. Because we were certainly celebrating in a very different way, and not different, like Passover is a different night. And that's a good thing because we want to make nights that are unique. This year's Passover was so much a different night. We really don't want to ever have to do that again, to be so cut off from our family. Even if you were able to connect, it was certainly not the same as being with them at Seder, or even getting a visit from them before Seder, which we also couldn't do. And so this was a year that was very hard to go from the very low moments of isolation to the highs of how we normally would be. The feeling from going from that isolation to celebrate the holiday itself. And that is why we have this confusion about why we call them holy days. And I received a lot of questions, a lot of concern, saying that I cannot call these days holy. I cannot call these days so wonderful, because in fact, it's very difficult to celebrate in such a way. And so we have at least one answer. Sorry, hang on 1 second. Okay. And so this is the exact question asked by the Netivot Shalom. The Netivot Shalom is a book written very recently compared to many other books. It was written around the year 2000 by the Slonim of a Rebbe. And the Slonim of a Rebbe was someone who lived in Israel and wrote this volume, this set of books called the Netivot Shalom. And in it, he talks about the Parsha and the holidays and Shabbat. And here he's focusing on this Parsha, which talks about those things as well. And so he asks our question, how is it even possible that holiness could exist in this world? A world of materiality, of physical desires, of impurity, of shells and appetites. And I would say, so he's asking, how can we see holiness in such a physical world? And I think certainly all the more so, can you stretch that idea when you think about the condition of humanity right now? Going through such illness, going through such isolation, quarantine, and lockdown, how much more is it harder to call out holiness during these times? And we not only think about Passover that we left up behind, but also about coming to Shavuot as we approach that in coming weeks. So we ask, how is it even possible that holiness could exist in this world? How can a human bring upon holiness in this world, and holiness when holiness and this world are diametrically opposed? He answers, the Holy One brought down to this world a complete system of holiness where one can independently strengthen their purpose of becoming a holy nation. This system encompasses the dimensions of space and time and of soul. So we are not just ourselves, and we are not just the world we see around us. There's a deeper essence going on. There's a dimension of the space, the world itself, the physical reality, of time, and of soul. In the dimension of space, we have the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, that no matter what condition it's in, even though it's destroyed, it continually helps holiness flow through the Jewish people. Because the Beit HaMikdash and the holy congregations of Israel and the holy congregations make us holy. So the Jewish people make the Jewish people holy. Just who we are in our dedication to God's will, we create holiness. As I mentioned, each one of us are holy in different ways. And by adding our own uniqueness, we make our nation holy. And a little bit of light we have within us, bringing out, we push aside the darkness. A little bit of holiness pushes aside a lot of impurity. Then we have, as I mentioned before, the dimension of time. All the festival days and the Shabbatot, are a system of holiness. For all who want to be called towards the holiness, there is for that purpose a wellspring of holiness. As we see in the book of Genesis, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו. כי בו שבה מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. And God completed the work, skipping down to the second line. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. For on it God had ceased from all God's tasks that God created to do. The holiness of Shabbat is a fountain of holiness. For the one who wants to be made holy, so they draw that holiness from Shabbat. And that's true for festival days as well. It is the reason they are called Mikra'ei Kodesh, sacred calling times. They are fountains of holiness. which encompass the entire year, causing holiness to flow to the one who wants to be made holy. And that's why the days are listed in the Torah, but also why we are required to call out their holiness. They can't just be days on the calendar. The festivals and the days of Shabbat are not just days you know are there. You have to search them out. You have to call them out. In order to drink from that fountain, you have to call them out. Because then there's the dimension of ourselves, the soul. It says, and make yourselves holy and be holy. A human who makes, this is all from the Netivot Shalom, the same text. A human who makes themselves holy, they make them holy above, and a human who makes himself a little holy, they make them very holy. This means that this means that when one begins to make themselves holy, holiness flows upon them from above. And this system is replete with holiness in the realms of the time of the holidays and each person. That the holiness of one who brought down to this world for all who will become holiness. And Shabbat and the festival days are a reminder of leaving Egypt. When we left Egypt, we went from the very not holy, even less than not holy, it was impure. When we left out and went out, we weren't just going out from slavery. We weren't just not worshiping their gods. We went towards our God. We had an immediate perk, immediate spike in our holiness when we left Egypt. That is, when we left, we remember that it is our responsibility to liberate ourselves time and time again from the doings in the land of Egypt. That this is the gateway when we enter into the festival day. When we go through, we start the holiday. We leave Egypt each time, and every Shabbat, the same thing. And that's why we add that line in Kiddush, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim. We remember that we're leaving Egypt. Not just on Passover do we say that line, but each and every Chag, each and every festival, holiday, and each and every Shabbat. To remember that it was our duty to leave Egypt and to be purified from its impurity. And this is also the preparation of the holiest day, the festival of Shavuot, which is coming, of course, in a few weeks. A day when we receive the Torah. The preparation is to purify us as we go from Passover to Shavuot. We go from leaving the impure all the way to the mountain of Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. And to do that, the 7 weeks it's required, or that it celebrates the requirements, to go from the most impure to the highest of receiving the Torah. In those 7 weeks, we are required to work on ourselves. The preparation is to purify ourselves from the mundane and from everything else causing that obstacle. To become purified from all the impurities, and only afterwards do we say, I will become pure and I will become a holy with the upper holiness. And to reach the holiness of Shavuot and to receive the Torah. We begin that preparation when we leave Egypt on Pesach. And that's the beginning, just the corner that we turn when we leave Egypt, so that one will be capable of receiving holiness. For generally speaking, impurity cannot be attached to holiness. Averting it is to bring about the purpose of you shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. And so that's what we see when this Parsha, when it says Mikra'ei Kodesh, we have to recognize that the world is a challenging place. We have to recognize that there is a lot of disease. We have to recognize that all our family, including ourselves, are locked away from each other. We recognize our emotions around that, our frustrations, our fears, our anxiety. We recognize all of that, even on Shabbat, even on the holidays. But we are reminded that there is something else, something holier than all of those mundane challenges. And that is Kedusha, the holiness of time. And we are reminded to free ourselves, or at least make holy the mundane, by calling out those days as holy. So as we approach Shavuot, we are now in the third week. We're in the fourth week, excuse me. But we're in the fourth week of counting of the Omer. And when we complete all 7 weeks, we'll be at Shavuot. So we have left Passover, which in and of itself was our coming out of Egypt in a small way. But over this long 7-week period, we are even making greater strides to reenact our connection with Har Sinai, of standing at Har Sinai and receiving God's pure words. First in the 10 Commandments, but then also in the revelation of the rest of the Torah. And that great moment was the greatest time that we connected with God, so much so that God, many believe, God spoke directly to all Jews alive at that moment. Some believe we heard all of the 10 Commandments, or at least some believe we heard one letter, or some just believe we heard God opening up the moments ready to speak. However long it was, we then couldn't handle the pressure. And we asked Moses to be our intermediary instead. But however, the result, at the first moments, we were ready, or God wanted us to receive God's holiness, to receive that greatest of uniqueness, to connect with God. So I urge you, as we come close to Shavuot, a time to not only see the negative, but to grow from the negative, to grow out of the ashes, and to feel God as we get to the time where God gave the greatest gift, the Torah, and how we can continue to give that gift every single year. I wish you a very good week, and I hope to connect to you very soon, as best I can. And I will leave now my phone number and email, which you can always get from your desk in the lobbies. And I wish you Zay Gesund, to go in health and to stay strong. Chazak v'amatz.